Many go to Housing New Zealand. So, Mr. Chair.
I call the Honourable Minister Nick Smith.
Mr. Chairman, the first thing that was extraordinary about that contribution from Jacinda Ardern is when she said New Zealand needs more housing. Well, I simply say to that member, why then have you opposed at every single step the special housing area and the Housing Accords legislation supported unanimously by the Auckland Council for 39,000 more houses in Auckland? Because she can't stand up and give speeches saying we need to increase housing supply when she and her colleagues have done everything possible to oppose increasing housing supply. I then need to expose the contribution of half-truths from Phil Twyford. He said that the Social Housing Vision Report opposed reviewable tenancies. That is absolutely untrue. It is true that they said you shouldn't review everybody's tenancy every single year. Well, we on this side of the House support that. We say that we should review those tenancies where it's clear people's circumstances has changed and where the needs for which they gained access to a social house has moved on, and he is being grossly misleading in that respect. But I've got to tell you, the real big daddy of misrepresentation and trying to retell history was when Mr. Twyford said Labor made major investments in the quality of their state housing. Mr. Speaker, I nearly choked on my water when I heard those views. Let me give the member the numbers. When National came to government in 2008, how many of these 69,000 houses had been insulated? I know my colleague Phil Heatley, he would know. He came in as the Minister of Housing. And when they say this government has under-invested in state housing, let me give the House the numbers. Every single state house, 40,000 of them that can be insulated, will be insulated by the end of next month. What an extraordinary achievement. Let me give you the numbers another way. This government each year has insulated 10 times as many houses per year as the socialists opposite, who give crocodile tears about state housing tenants but ignored their needs for more than a decade. And let me give the hard numbers. $2.9 billion is being invested in this year's government's budget into Housing New Zealand. $2.9 billion. Let's look over the 9 years of massive surpluses, best economic times in half a century, and Labor spent less than half that amount. Less than half that amount. And then let's take the other half-truth. The member Phil Twyford says, look at the size dividend that the government has taken from Housing New Zealand. But he forgets to mention, yes, but there are two transactions that occurs between the government and Housing New Zealand. There's the amount the government pays each year to Housing New Zealand for providing housing services, and the amount the dividend comes back. And the government has increased the amount it pays Housing New Zealand by $160 million per year at a record. Let me give you the numbers. Labor's last year in government, under $500 million per year. This financial year, $670 million. That is a massive increase in difficult financial times and shows the level of commitment that this government has to social housing. The last point I want to make is in terms of the contribution from Chris Hipkins. He objects to the grotty state houses in Pomari being demolished so that we can reinvest in new, far better quality housing. Well, actually, let me say to Madam King, and that is that actually if you're going to build new houses, you actually have to demolish the old ones. That's actually a physical reality. I'd love the next Labor member to explain how they're not going to demolish any houses, but they're going to do redevelopments in suburbs. Look, the opposition's approach to this bill is flaky, is as shallow as a bird bath, and actually shows they've done no new thinking in how we can better deliver social housing for New Zealanders.
The Honourable Annette King.
Thank
you very much, Mr Chairman. I have to say to the Minister, he's getting rather overexcited.
Right.
And I suggest that maybe he calms down if he's going to take another call, because